So, hello everyone. As I've been introduced, my name is Praise Alli Johnson. But before we get started, before I allow my fellow colleagues here to introduce themselves, I want to set the stage for what we're going to be talking about this morning. Have we all heard about this compliment that you have potential? And people have been telling you every single time that you have potential. That, oh, you have potential. There's something great you have. You can do something great. Does it ever feel like it gets to a point that it starts becoming an insult? They tell you have potential, you are 19. They tell you have potential, now you are 25. You've not done anything, you are still at the stage of potential. You have not yet graduated into executing on those potential and getting results. That is what kind of is the situation with the startup ecosystem or the technology ecosystem in Africa today. Every time you meet a foreign investor, Africa has potential. Oh, great things are happening in Africa. A very youthful population, obvious truth. So what we're going to be talking about today is scaling from Africa. How can we actually put in motion the ability and the result, which is to scale product, services, innovation, creativity from Africa into the world? And with me, I have some of the great minds in the ecosystem to be having the discussion with. Those who are involved in investing, they have been told to their face by LPs that in Africa have potential, and they have to sell the idea that within this potential, we have those who are actually executing, and we are creating frameworks to make them execute. And that is why I am the right person to use as a vehicle to invest in Africa. We have Francis Sani here. We also have Leye here, who is a founder that has executed, that has built in the ecosystem, and has been funded to the point now that he has opinions about the kind of funding you should accept, the distraction funding, and all of that. And so we have Leye here. And then we have Cynthia. She provides education in this space. She creates connection. She makes sure that the ecosystem has the necessary informations and organizations to make sure that founders find the necessary support they need and also get the necessary connections they need to make the next step so that they can go from potential to execution. So I welcome everyone today to this conversation, and we want you to write down questions. If you have questions, I want you to write them down. I want you to think, and we will have just 20 minutes of conversations, and after that we'll go to Q&A to make sure that we all get value. Thank you. So before we start asking questions and having this conversation, I would like us to have like a personal introduction. So we'll start with Sani. Please let everyone know who you are.
No, for sure. Thanks, Praise. Hi, everyone. How are we doing today? Having fun? My name is Francis Sani. Nowadays, I introduce myself as a civil servant. I work full-time advising the Minister of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani. My portfolio is Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Capital. Also very privileged to be running the 3MTT program. How many people in the room know 3MTT? Okay, great. Good to see. Prior to this, I used to lead global operations at a global venture capital firm based in LA. We invested in more than 200 companies across 5 continents and 30 countries, 30 cities over the past 3 years. Before then, I used to lead accelerators at CCAP for about 4 years across the continent. And early in my career, I did my main consulting and also ran a couple of companies. Pleasure to be here today. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Pleasure to be here. My name is Leye. Actually, I'm co-founder of Glade, which is a fintech company over here in Nigeria and UK as well. So also presently, I'm a fractional product lead to TransferWise, which is Wise now leading the SME business across emerging markets. So once again, thank you, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Cynthia E. Chisom. Apparently, I'm the only lady on the panel, and I happen to be wearing a color that every other person is not wearing. But it's so great to be here. What do I do? The work that I do spans across 3 major thematic areas. One is education. I believe that founders on the continent lack a lot of support when it comes to the primary education. And so we started SDC Startup School as the YC Startup School for the African continent, where anybody who is interested in becoming a founder can have a place to learn the foundations and eventually know how to execute. And the second area is around connections. I believe that community is really key for a founder. Like, if you don't have people that you can connect with and share ideas with, it's going to be hard for you to scale further. And so I do this through two platforms. First is the Africa Festival. The Africa Startup Festival is a major festival on the continent. We're going to be having a festival this November in Lagos. We also do the Africa Technology Expo. It's a massive event that hosts about over 4,000 attendees from across the world. And then the last second area is Founders Friday. How many of you know Founders Friday in Abuja? Amazing. So through Founders Friday, we're able to create connections and make sure that support reaches the right people. And then the last area is the work that I do in the leather industry. I am an aboki. I learned how to fix shoes 10 years ago, and I've been doing this for the past 10 years. And I started a company that currently empowers local leather artisans from across the nation. And we support these artisans, give them market access, give them support. So yeah, that's where you find me across these three areas.
So let's start with potential to execution. And one thing that Inyoluwa calls him his boss. So by extension, we call him our Oga. It's Honorable Boso Tijani. As implemented, which is the 3MTT program, in my opinion, it's designed to get the ecosystem educated, right? To have the largest, obviously, you will give more insight into that, to have the largest technical knowledge in Africa. And so the question now is how does this, how do you think this will drive innovation and position this talent for global access, global opportunities, also connecting it in tandem with the idea of going from, potential to execution?
No, thanks, Praise. I think that, as someone who, frankly, before I joined public sector over a year ago, I'd invested in a couple of education companies, but I'm not a core education expert, so I'm not the kind of person that would typically know what workforce development looks like. And the past 1 year of designing and executing 3MTT, in the process of doing that, we've learned a lot. I think that the picture I paint nowadays for everyone is to say, if you think about the village or the town that you're from, I, for one, I'm from Ife. I'm originally from Edo State, but I was born and raised in Ife. If you think about where you're from, and think that in where you're from, how many people, I'm curious, in your towns where you're from, how many people do you think in your town there's up to 5,000 people earning ₦1 million per month in your town? Can you raise your hand up? Outside of Lagos and Abuja, how many people in the town where you're from, or the city where you're from, you have people earning more than 5,000 people earning more than ₦1 million a month? Very few. So not a lot of hands up, right? So it means that across many cities in our country today, there's not a lot of purchasing power, right? When people talk about the fact that our ecosystem has not been able to grow significantly, in 2022, we had the highest amount of capital come on, in terms of VC funding raised on the continent in Nigeria, over $1.2 billion, right? And the expectation was that when a lot of that money came in, what was going to follow was going to be an explosion, and the explosion of the ecosystem. And that hasn't really happened. Obviously, the zero interest period in the US then reduced the amount of capital that was going outside of the US into emerging markets. But the reality is that we live in a country with a very low purchasing power.
Yes.
Right. And Boyeji was on TV recently talking about productivity, and that went viral, and everybody had hot takes on how will I use AI for my manufacturing or for my pure water factory. And people can have different opinions on it. Yeah. The core thing that I would say, in my opinion, I agree with E in terms of productivity, and I don't think it's something to be sentimental about. I think we can often be sentimental about things. The reality is that in the application of technology to our industries, in the application of technology to many of the things that we do in our country today, there's no significant application of technology. Yes. As governments in the previous years played a role in not allowing that to happen? Potentially, right? Yeah. But do innovators and entrepreneurs also have a role to play? Yes, we do, right? We need to be able to increase productivity. When the Honorable Minister released this blueprint last year, the title of the blueprint, I don't know if many people have seen it. I was looking at it recently and I didn't even dig it before. The title of the blueprint is literally accelerating our collective prosperity through technical efficiency in critical sectors, right? Technical efficiency and the use of technology and the increase of productivity would increase the output and increase purchasing power across multiple sectors. What drives technical efficiency? Knowledge, insights. Who drives knowledge and insights? Talent, individuals, and people. It is important for us to be able to equip a large number of our youth population. We have more than 100 million people under the age of 25 with the skills that they can use to be able to learn how to build. Primarily to build for our local economy. Because if we build for our local economy, it's a low-risk environment. We learn how to build, and it's easier for us to then get to the point where we can potentially export that talent to the world. And export not in terms of, jackpot. I personally don't think we have a jackpot problem, right? If you look at immigration numbers in the top destination countries, in the US, to the UK, to Canada, Nigeria is not in the top 10. In fact, in Canada, where I think in 2023 or 2022, we entered the top 10, our number was minute compared to India and China and the Philippines and the likes. We don't have a jackpot problem. We have a talent problem. The problem is that we have too few extremely talented people, and those extremely talented people are getting opportunities elsewhere, and we've not found a way to be able to deepen that ecosystem and to be able to deepen that talent. If we find a way to be able to deepen that talent pool, the local economy is going to be better off for it, because it means that the average person anywhere in any of these states who wants to build a business, even if they're not building an app, if they just want someone who has sense to design a better marketing campaign, to be able to figure out how to be able to get customers, they're able to get access to that talent. Now, if that happens, it then means that we potentially get to the point where, and this is the idea for 3MTT, the idea is build a local talent pool, but then get to the point where we can expose as many of these people as possible to jobs remotely, right? Because the world has a lot of jobs that they need, and many of the developing countries or the developed countries have shrinking populations. And over the next couple of years, especially with AI, they're going to need talent to be able to service their populations and service their economies. We have an opportunity to be able to unlock that. Imagine a world in which Ogbomosho, Kebbi, Jos, give me a random state, Lafia, has 50,000 young people earning $1 million a month.
That's a huge number.
The economy will be transformed, right? Because what's going to happen in that place? The malls are going to go up. The cinemas are going to go up. Real estate is going to go up, right? So not only is talent, from an abstract point, an opportunity for us to be able to equip people with skills, it is probably the fastest thing that we have to potential economic transformation. Before I go to the next person, and just to tie it off to your point around global innovation and ensuring that we take Africa to the world, one of the biggest things that we sleep on today is our diaspora. How many people do we think of Nigerian descent in the diaspora? Random number around the house. Random number. How many Nigerians are in the diaspora? 3 million? Hey, 20 million. Now you put that for there. That's a high number, but we have 50 million Nigerians in the diaspora. We have over 1 million in the US, right? When you go to the diaspora, when you go to most countries, you would typically find people from different countries in different economic classes. Nigerians are always in the middle class. A larger percentage of Nigerians are in the middle class in the diaspora. The solution to taking Africa to the world and to building global companies is to leverage the Nigerians in the diaspora. Because they're in all of the companies that you need to be able to build and sell those solutions to. They already have the insights for building global solutions. The problem is that we've not, as a country, come together to say we actually want to build our country. Many of us actually don't, we can be quite negative about our country. If we switch that and we say we want to actually start building our country, and we develop talents, and we connect these talents and the people in Nigeria to the people who are going outside of Nigeria, we're going to be able to create something stronger.
Thank you so much. Talking about diaspora, we have Mr. Leye here, right? And obviously, Mr. Leye is in Nigeria all the way from London, right? So, especially for everybody here. And the question now is this, what was your experience or your just a brief history of your experience of building for the African market all the way from the UK and how that plays into taking Africa global?
All right. Thank you so much. Well, the truth is, I believe the civil servant, right? He has said it in terms of talent gap, right? So one problem we face in that place, basically for us here, is a talent gap. When we move to that place, we'll be able to get the team that we need. And these are the teams that basically they can just execute. No story. Nobody asks you, okay, have you done this? Have you done that, right? So that helps us because now we'll be able to have talent to deliver what we want, to deliver our vision. So taking back to the 3 T's, right? So when you guys started 3 T's, honestly, I wish I can kind of loud it because I believe that's the way to go. Almost every global country do that implementation. Even today, especially in the UK, right, they are moving toward renewable energy. So they are training about 25,000 was an artisan, was a technician and the rest towards renewable energy, something similar to the 3S, right? So now going back to the actual question, right? So honestly, that talent gap, the UK market and the European market help us to fill that gap entirely. I also remember when I joined was Wise, right, as a fractional product person. So the idea is, look, let's be able to get people that can be able to pick for the emerging markets. So we try for a couple of months. We have a lot of challenge. It can maybe timing. Also, it can also be language barrier. But primarily, it's also a talent issue. So just have to fall back to the guys wasn't European for also to European and also North American. That's in Argentina and the rest also be able to do those to be able to implement what we need to implement, especially when we move to the SME space entirely. So the issue is that to us, it was a talent problem that forced us to be able to diversify into that, and also, of course, also the talent that keep us able to go moving forward. So having said that, for the past 1 year plus, I believe things are changing because we'll now be able to get some talents here that understand, look, it's not just about writing the code, right? It's about building solutions. So they understand execution, even just maybe you now need to just hold them for a while, unlike before that, you need to be telling them, do this, do this, do this. You just need to tell somebody, okay, maybe do this, and they understand where you're heading to. So it makes the journey much more easier for us. Thank you.
So tying into that, Cynthia, you've worked with a lot of founders, and some of the biggest challenges they've mentioned is, I have an idea, you take them from idea to the point of building the product out. What are the challenges you've noticed in the space that basically makes it hard for these founders to execute and to get, to the next stage?
That's a very big question you put in there. So let's start with the different stakeholders, right? So first is VCs and investors, angel investors. What's the major challenge that they have with supporting founders, right, to help them execute? I was having a conversation with someone who leads like a major VC on the continent. I think I can mention their name, 54 Collective. Hopefully we'll be able to get them into Abuja soon. And she said throughout this year, the biggest headache that she's had to deal with is just looking through pitch decks and crying. Because one of the major things that she noticed there was a lack of problem solution fit. So a lot of founders are sending in pitch deck to such a really, really great VC fund, hoping that they will get the funding that they're looking for. And then the VCs on the other side are saying, I cannot fund any of these guys that are coming to me. And the major reason why is because there's a lack of problem solution fit. So which leads us to the second level. Why is it that founders don't understand what problem solution fit is? Why is it that they're not able to understand how to identify a problem? Why is it that someone is trying to solve a problem that does not exist, but only exists in his mind? It's because of education and knowledge. It's as simple as that. You see, one of the biggest, mind-blowing experience I had, so I did my degree at Imperial College London Business School. an MSc degree on entrepreneurship, innovation, and management. And the thing that took me aback was the fact that there was so much investment in education. So much investment in education, and it only makes sense that we have the kind of founders that are coming out from such a place. But we don't have as much education here. I met with a founder yesterday, and she's like, I have an idea, but I don't know where to start from. You have founders who are like, oh, I have this really interesting idea. I'm going to go get a few of my friends, and we're going to start building an app. That's a reflection of lack of education. And so it's a big issue that it even affects the VCs and their need to fund, right? Which is why we had to invest a lot through SDC Startup School to really close that education gap. The second layer now is for incubators and accelerators. What are the challenges? Because incubators and accelerators are designed to be able to, get a founder through the early years, right? And then help them scale further through funding and education, mentorship, and all of that. And I'm having discussions with these incubator leads, and they're like, a lot of the people who are applying into my incubator program, I can't support them because they don't. Is it that we are seeing SMEs applying, saying that they are startups to get into the incubator program, or there's just a mismatch in terms of what's moving that founder to actually build. So the reason why he's deciding to build or she's deciding to is because she wants to make enough money within the next 5 years from a VC and then Jackpot. So there's that mismatch in terms of values. And so that's why we had to do this collaboration with an incubator program called Futurize Global. So they have this African-wide incubator program for universities, right? And they said, see, the reason why we're coming to meet you is because the last incubator program that we did, it was hard for us to get them to the next level. You guys come in, go take them through the primary education, and then we can now take it up to the next level. So there is that mismatch, and we can't lean on our universities to be able to provide that education because, just normal computer science, people are learning things that they shouldn't be learning at this stage, right? Not to talk of entrepreneurial education and startup education. And so we had to take every single founder in that incubator program through the primary education. So what is the primary education? First, understanding how to identify a problem, understanding who your customers are, understanding what industry you're playing in. You're asking a founder the problem you're trying to solve, what industry, and you're confused. You're not the only person trying to solve that problem, and there are like multiple different players that you have to lean on and will lean on you to ensure that that value chain works. So understanding your industry, understanding problem solution fit, understanding problem customer fit, understanding business models. The major things that we see with a lot of founders is that they're copying and pasting business models. You see an article that says 52 business models that you can apply. That's not how you do business models. You design business models based on customer, their need, what value, how you're going to capture value, how you're going to deliver value, what's the cost of even delivering that value. Those elements are important in designing business models. And then you also have to understand product market fit. I heard the founder telling me, oh, I found product market fit. Like, what do you mean by you found product market fit?
Yeah.
And then you are coming to ask for money and then you've not generated a single revenue. Do you actually know what product market fit is? So those foundational lessons is what's hindering VCs from going further, incubators and accelerators from really pushing further in the ecosystem.
Thank you so much. So we've done something great today. We've made a connection with establishing the fact that we have 3MTT providing technical education. Then we've established that founders, and with your respect to, which you're referring to the diaspora education, and we've seen a lot of Nigerian founders succeeding simply because they are building from outside Africa for Africa, and they're also building for outside Africa, but outside of Africa. We've seen that a lot, and then we've established the fact that there's also a massive gap between technical education and the necessary education required to build the actual product that we need. So obviously, I believe there's going to be a connection between 3MTT and then channeling them into multiple opportunities and also getting them educated for building and the rest. So the next question, we are going to just ask one or two questions before we get into Q&A so that we make sure that people get questions answered. Would you also raise of hands? Do you have questions so that I know if I will stop? All right, we have a few questions. All right. So the next question now is, so we've gotten people educated. We understand the reality of the fact that a lot of founders that are executing really well are executing outside of Africa. Someone might want to say, is that true? But we can talk about LEM5. We can talk about a lot of them that they executed from outside of Africa. And we've also established the fact that there is a gap, right? So let's assume that we've made these connections. What are other, opportunities that these founders or these startup founders can take advantage of, especially now knowing that we have our guy in the office, and a lot of founders are kind of not aware of what is possible or what is possible in terms of everyone. If we talk about what can the government do, everybody have a list of what the government can do, and it is an inexhaustive list. They know the government needs to do policy, policy, policy. There's a lot of policies, but outside of that, what is within our power that we can execute right now with what Honorable Bosun Desani is doing in office?
No, thanks, Praise. I think that, to your point, I think there's work that needs to be done on both sides. There's work that needs to be done on the government side in terms of making it easier for folks to be able to access opportunities and access information about opportunities. A very simple action point there is there's some work that has been done on the Startup Act before we came into office that has been built upon over the past couple of months. I think ONDI just last week relaunched the portal. I think it's called Nigeria startup.gov. I think if anyone could just, Google searches nigeriastartup.gov or something like that. I've forgotten the exact, I can check before the panel is over. That's the direct angle because through that portal, the idea would be to provide the benefits of the work that, the previous team who set up the Startup Act had done to essentially operationalize it. So if you're a founder who's trying to build and you want to be able to access opportunities or know what's happening, I would say you want to be able to definitely go there. That's one thing. I think the interesting thing I found moving to Abuja and spending the past 1 year in Abuja is that there's quite a number of opportunities. There's also an education problem. There's the education problem in terms of helping people understand how to build, but then there's also the education problem of helping people get insights on, where the opportunities are and how to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. Sometimes it's also that, people also wait for it to be given to them on a platter. So I would say the first thing you want to be able to do is in whatever sector you're interested in, either in government, under the ministry or outside of the ministry. In many instances, all government parastatals would usually have something that is public facing where they share opportunities. It's not always the best user experience, but it's somewhere to start, right? So that's number two that I would say. Number three, I would say specifically would be as part of the work that we're doing with 3MTT, but also through NDI, which is the Office for Nigeria Digital Innovation. I would say people want to engage those two entities because through those two entities, there's a lot of stuff that we're rolling out over the next couple of months that founders, aspiring founders are able to benefit from. People who want to go into technology are able to benefit from, but also people who are already existing, founders who want to be able to scale would also be able to plug into and benefit from.
Thank you so much. So one question before we go, and that'll be for Mr. Lei. A lot of founders I've spoken to, a lot of young people that they learned how to code. They know how to use Node.js. Now they want to build something, and because there's a mindset of raising VC. And I had a conversation with Mr. Lei before we came on stage about the mindset founders need to have when they build their product and the mindset they need to have in like how you want that product to be for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years. And in two ways. The first mindset in regards to the product and the mindset in regards to funding and the success that has been published or that has been made popular about the product. So to your question, the question is, what mindset or what, from your experience, do you want founders to have? Or do you want people that are going from education to information to building a product to have in regards to products and in regards to the success mentality?
Thank you. I think I'll go from the education, information, and product based on experience, right? Because just like she mentioned something about lack of education earlier. So the problem is a lot of people aspiring founder, let's start because the founder they're already in that hole, but the aspiring founder they are kind of build product for themselves instead of building product for the market. That's a major problem I've seen. So, but you need to get the education to understand that market, also the information to understand your customers. Then before you even wasn't to understand your customers, sorry, the problems, right? The solution and your customers. So if these two are lacking, you won't be able to build a great product. That's a fact. So let's assume you'll be able to capture these two and you're now building, you want to build a product. Before even the product, so you need capacity, which is now come to teams, right? The truth is globally, people build businesses, not the other way around. So you need capable team for them to be able to, for you to be able to build a great product. So I'll start from the education, right? For you to understand the market and of course understand what you're bidding for, come to the what's the information, then perform the product. Then if you now want to build, let's say for 5 years, 10 years, because I've built a lot of products, right, within the real estate, within the fintech and payments, especially when I started into switch, and of course, including husbandry, right? So when she said she was making shoe, the only thing that came to my mind, how can I sell leather to her? So you get the point. So when you are building that product, you want to really build a problem that can solve not to this problem, but including tomorrow's problem. So you need to really think beyond today, and of course, think ahead of your customers. Just like I was having a conversation with you. Your main competitors, honestly, let's assume you are in payment, right? Your competitor is not Flutterwave or InterSwitch. Your competitors are your customers, because those are the people you really want to outdo. You really want to exceed their expectation. Now, going to funding, you mentioned funding, isn't it?
Yes.
Investment.
The success mentality regards to I have to raise money to feel successful.
That's very deep. I wish you can ask Cynthia that, because the issue, the success mentality, the truth is, we have a lot of investor sabinos. I believe you agree, right? People that waste your time, waste your resources, and the rest. So for me, if I'm to start all over again, to be honest, investment will not be part of my playbook in the next 2 years until I find that product market fit and I really need that money for me to be able to build that business. If I don't have the need for the money, I won't speak to any investors. So based on experience, I built a particular product, right? And we sold that business without a single investor. I believe Elijah know the product, that's pay it, without a single investor. But get what? We now move to another one. We now start looking for investors. That now happened to be almost our downfall because our eye was totally outside the solution. We're thinking, okay, now let us chase after the investor. We spent almost 2 years chasing investor Sabinos. And it was hectic. But later we'll have to retreat and be able to do what we need to do. So the first thing is, please, whatever you want to do, please, just focus on your customers, focus on your product, and of course, the solution. The investor is the least of anything you want to focus on, because the truth is, the better you have the traction, you have the numbers, investor will come for you. That would be the better strategy than you chasing the investors. That would just be my advice on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Our accurate timekeeper, is that the time we have for questions, or that is the time we have for this session? Just thumbs up. Questions, thumbs up. All right. So we are running out of time, so we'll just take. Okay, we will take. Let me stand and say. Who has questions? Let me see your hands up. 1, 2. We'll take 4 questions. So 2 year. Do we have anyone yet? No. Then 1 year and 1 year. If they are fast enough, we can get to one more. But please, your name, your questions, and let's get. And if you want to direct the question to anyone, you just direct it. Or if you want to general, just let me know.
All right, awesome. Thank you so. The mic is. Thank you so much for the opportunity to actually ask this question. So my question is actually directed to Cynthia, and huge shout out Cynthia. Like, I've taken your course from SCDC, and it's really really awesome. But my question is, you talked about education, so I'm trying to come to the terms like, is the problem really lack of education, or inaccessibility of that education to the people that are actually building stuff, because people like you are doing like great stuff. Like you have, I know like your course teaches a whole lot, and coming from an African, like you're in Africa and you're teaching from their perspective is really awesome. But I'm thinking, is it an accessibility problem to the people that actually need this, or is it really an educational problem?
That's a great point. One of the biggest decisions we had to make um, when we started a startup school was, do we make this free or do we make it paid, right? And we decided to make it free, and it's because of that question, which is making it accessible. There is a huge gap, and how can we get this into the hands of many people? So the second layer is now visibility for what we're building, and my hope is that through this platform, more students can be able to get that. Another area that we're looking to do is sort of integrate it into campuses, right? Because my life changed when I decided to become a founder while I was in school, right? And there are many, many successful founders that started from school. The environment is perfect for you to test, right? As quickly as possible, learn as quickly as possible, and fail as quickly as possible. So that's the next layer, and which is also collaborating with the government to make sure that the right education is in front of people. So you've raised a very good question. It's a question that we are constantly asking ourselves and trying to iterate over and over. So thank you.
One other answer is don't gatekeep. If you got something nice, share with someone else.
Exactly. Share it.
Share it.
We're on LinkedIn, SDC Startup School.
Next question.
Oh yeah, hi. My name is Beauty Augustine. I've got two questions. So my first question is going to Mr. Francis Sani. I mean, we're glad we have the government kind of represented in our midst. So there's this back and forth on social media where they talk about the type of educational system you have in the UK compared to the type of educational system you have here. And then you guys made a lot of mentions about education. So I want to ask, because we know that we're British colonized, plus whatever thing we're doing is kind of centered around them. So are there like regulatory bodies for curriculums that we have in school, starting from like the primary to tertiary institution? Do they kind of, go through what they teach and change it? Because, I mean, there was a back and forth happening one time, and they said the way they teach them in the UK was different from what they teach them here in Nigeria. And you could see most of the elites send their children there. They come back here, and they fill up all the leadership positions. And then we here, it is against all odds, your ability to be a jungle fighter. So I want to ask if the government has any policies or steps that they are taking to either correct it or begin to transition our educational system. Then I also have a question for Cynthia. I would want to compliment you. I think it's beautiful and it's refreshing to have a woman sit in the midst of three men. I am a feminist in all ends. Plus, you were so sound. You had a very good sense of humor. I want to ask, you also spoke about, bridging the gap in educating, looking for how to kind of sensitize the mind of persons so that they be problem solvers. Is there a way we sensitize the mind of the parents? Because it starts from the home. So is there like a platform that we kind of maybe do a session for the parents to help them better understand their children? So from the younger age, you don't begin to hear, I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be this. You allow the child to kind of go into their inner child, bring out creativity. And at the age of 16, 17, they are already thinking towards being problem solvers. So that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that great question. Very quickly, three responses there. First answer is yes, we do have regulatory bodies under the Ministry of Education in charge of that. And I do know that, especially in recent times, they're working actively on updating our curriculums and making them more relevant. When I interacted, in recent times, it's something they're working on actively. For some of the work that we're doing as well, we're also working with them on the digital literacy side to incorporate more digital literacy into the curriculum, but also eventually on the technical talent side to be able to incorporate, more advanced technical talent education into our university's curriculum. I think, the thing about bureaucracy and government is you almost have to do two things. You have to do the programmatic and the short-term things, and then the results that you show from there is then easier for you to then be able to do the things that can make them more entrenched. The other thing I would say is that we do have an opportunity as a nation to be able to leverage, when people think about technologies like artificial intelligence, and, on Twitter, my minister is known as the AI minister, and it's something we like because we think that if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, we potentially stand at risk of, being at a significant disadvantage in the next couple of years. But what things like AI allows us to do, because the reality is our population is growing so fast. We have so many children out of school. We have so many people in school who are not getting access to the best education, right? And it's almost as though the process that the amount of investment that you would take for you to be able to update the curriculum, train all of the teachers, the professor that is still teaching Fortran today, training that professor in Node.js and how to use Bolt or how to use Cursor, that's going to take a lot of time, right? But technologies like AI potentially would give us the opportunity to be able to do that at lower cost and at a faster scale than we would have been able to do before. The third piece I would say is we're actually right now collaborating with the Ministry of Education on developing an EdTech strategy for the country, which is essentially going to say education is one of the biggest things that we need to be able to do as a nation to, upskill our people and to deepen our human capital development. How do we do that in a way that leverages technology as much as possible? So that's also something that we're working on. Over to you, Cynthia.
Amazing. And just to point out what you said, because the government is doing a lot of work with curriculum updates, right? But it's going to take time. So let's just be calm and leverage 3MTT in the meantime to just close that gap. And to your question about parents, you see, it's a very tough topic. I'm going to speak from my own perspective as a founder. Deciding to start innovating around the shoe repair and shoe care space, becoming an abuki is a weird thing, especially when you studied engineering in school for 5 years. They're expecting you to become that engineer. Till today, my mom is still asking me, when are you going to build that house for us? Because you studied building engineering, right? Convincing your parents is a very big thing, and I'm just going to give you strategies, right? It's just to mitigate the current situation. That's just what you can do. Our parents, our hope is that you guys, the future parents will be different for our younger, the future generation. But when it comes to convincing your parents that you want to go in a route that they're not very used to, you need to be able to show them examples of success. From time to time, as they are sending you those WhatsApp messages, be sending them WhatsApp links of Piggyverse founder becoming successful in this area. Send them WhatsApp messages of Flutterwave becoming successful. By the time they realize that there is a new route that is opening up and there are a lot of successes and you want to go in that route, it will take time to change their mind, but you are planting a seed in their hearts. Second is, you as an individual, you need to be responsible. You need to show that you can take charge of your life and that you're responsible enough, and this decision you're making is a very, very smart decision. If your parents have seen you make foolish decisions in the past, they can't trust you to make a decision that is going to impact your entire life. So right from now, find ways to contribute to the family, no matter how little. Like, show up for your parents. Be that responsible individual in your home. And by the time they see those patterns and see successes in that industry, they can open up to you. I remember many times when I was building, the Abuki, I would have a long call with my mom, right? And by the time I'm done with the call, I'm crying because she has spent time talking to me about all the investment that she has made in me. And okay, you're an Abuki, you're a cobbler, what does that even mean, And then at the end, I'm crying and I'm going back to the reason why I started the Abuki in the first place. I mean, now we're doing multi-millions, right? But then it was not the case. I had to keep pushing. So this leads me to the last part. You have to persevere. If you are in need for the short-term success or for the short-term gains, don't become a founder. Just go get a job. I had to leave a very high-paying job to do this full-time, right? So you need to persevere, push through the odds, and really show to them that you are not going to give up on this. And now she's excited about the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing. It takes time. you can't blame them. They've seen a lot in their lifetime.
So we have two questions here. Okay.
Okay, hello, good afternoon. My name is Nancy. Thank you so much, Cynthia, for that. My question was sort of in that line, just the one you just answered. But I'll start with Francis. Hi, good afternoon. I heard that you are an advocate, right, for black men to grow their hair. And I'm going through that, and I see like two black men with their hair long, and it's so beautiful. So I had an experience last 2 weeks. I was traveling to Jos, and we had this guy with dreads in our car, and for every single time we reached the NDLEA spot, we were stopped, we were searched. In fact, there was this place that they almost told him to remove all his clothes. And it's so disheartening because I mean, people should be able to express themselves the way they want, especially in the tech space. And most techies, I would say, want to have their hair out, want to grow their hair. Is there something that you are doing? I know you're advocating, but like from the government side of it, to tell, the older generations that because you keep your hair doesn't mean you are irresponsible, and you trying to grow your tech startup and all of that. I mean, that's the first question I'm going to ask. Then Cynthia, you spoke about the aspect of parents, but when you're speaking with investors and all of that, is there a way you tell them not to have those biases, when people keep their hair this way or dress a certain kind of way? Because I mean, the next generation come in are Gen Zs, and they don't conform to the normal standards of wearing suits and ties and all of that. So are there ways you guys are doing this for the young generation that are coming, so that as we are building ourselves, as we are building our startups and companies, we can express ourselves the way we like, not being boxed into, different shapes? Yeah, that's the questions I have. Thank you.
So, round of applause. I think that's an incredible question. First response to it is, I think that you would see, I was in Lagos a couple of weeks ago, and I was at a rave, and I noticed that a lot of the young people there, young guys, a lot more guys were having, living their hair out and growing their hair out. There's a correlation between economic progression and expression of self, right? So the first thing to do is to be able to facilitate more economic progression, so that more young people can be able to get to the point where they leave the base of Maslow's hierarchy and go higher up. If there are enough of us, it's going to reduce, because the reality is also the NDLEA guys, and I get stopped every single time, and I always have to have my ID card with me. The NDLEA guys, the police officers are going to keep stopping people. They are not stopping. In some cases, it's granted, because the reality is that the people who commit crimes sometimes also have a similar representation, right? And sometimes, perhaps, the percentage of the people who are on locks who commit crimes is larger than the percentage of people who are on locks who don't commit crimes, right? If you have more people, more young people, responsible young people who are doing legal work, who, when they are stopped, are able to speak good English, any police officer that you stop, typically, if you speak good English to them, or you talk to them in a way where you know yourself and know who you are, they will usually treat you differently, right? So we need to increase the number of people. That's something that we can do directly. However, you've made a good point. It's not something I've thought about, myself, in terms of doing that from a government standpoint. It's something I would think about. The first thing is, for me, myself, when I came into public sector, I could have decided to cut my hair, and I decided I wasn't going to do that. So I was going to be able to use myself as an example, and I know what the experience has been like. It's not always been the most positive, right? But I think it's important from a personal standpoint for us to be able to get more Africans and young people to express themselves in our natural ways, because the colonial mentalities and ideas that we have today is not the way we've always been. Over to you, Cynthia.
All right, so for VCs, I don't think hair and looks is a big deal. The moment you can really show up that you're a hard worker and you can get the job done, you can deliver on results, that's all, right? So VCs don't have a problem with, looks. They have a problem with founders that are lazy.
Thank you. If you have more questions, we will be around for a couple of minutes before we head out. You can meet us outside or somewhere and ask your questions. For the purpose of time, I'm handing over back. You want to say something? Okay.
Sorry, I know we're behind time. I was when I was flying in this morning, I read something in a book, and I think it's synonymous to what everybody in the panel has said today and what this conference aims to do. There was a quote there that said that you cannot know what has not been introduced into your consciousness. Until information comes into our consciousness and into our conscious existence, we cannot know. So even from a standpoint of potential and knowing what we can become, until we get that insight and get that information, we cannot know. All the information we need is out there. It is also our responsibility to fight. If there's anything that Nigerians have anywhere in the world, Nigerians are known for being loud and for being people that will persevere, right? Let us persevere, let us fight, let us find the information, and let us strive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you. I wanted to, that could be a perfect closing statement. And before we go, I want you to leave here with that statement and one other statement, which is, if you are being told you still have potential, you are not taking action. People need to see you take action. You are too old not to be taking action. As a startup founder, you shouldn't be told that. As a student, you shouldn't be told that. As someone who is looking for investors, oh, check back with us in 6 weeks, in 6 months, you have potential. That means you've gone to them at the wrong time. All right.
At the heart of innovation is problem solving. Technology, not for the sake of technology, but with a focus on people. At TM Labs, we craft solutions that